for our website, we started out in Drupal 7 and we did a manual content migration to Drupal 9, but we did it via Drupal 8. So about halfway through our process, we realized that we needed to move it to 9. So we are now on Drupal 9. So we had about 7 months to move approximately 2,000 pages of content. And we did that through 9 sprints. So we manually did that. And you can see here, I went down the spreadsheet route. So I used a lot of spreadsheets. I really like the Miro option, but for me, just to keep track of everything, because we were doing this so quickly, I found spreadsheets very useful. We staggered our go live of content. So we actually had 2 sites running. We had our beta site and we had our existing site. And we moved content and redirected content. So only for a week at a time or so was there content on both sites. So just to remove that maintenance aspect of it. So we didn't have to update everything, especially as coronavirus continued and updates were just coming in all the time. So our starting point, we were in a really good position for starting. You know, we had about just over 2,000 pages and just over 1,000 documents. We'd spent a lot of time on our last build reducing our website down as much as we could, and we did all of the sort of user journey mapping and the service team engagement during our previous rebuild. And because this was more just about getting us onto LocalGov Drupal and getting us onto Drupal 9, we weren't in a bad place. We were quite confident that what we had to move was mostly okay. So we moved content manually, and this was some days literally a case of sitting and copying and pasting the website from one page to the new site. As we've recently discovered, this did copy in some errant code, so we're now having to go back a little bit and clean stuff up. So just this morning, I was removing lots of random tags, but that's fine. We can do that. We used our sitemap to generate a starting point for every section of content. So we would build a spreadsheet. The one in the example there is our parks and countryside spreadsheet, and we would basically structure out our existing content. And then as we built that content in our new site, or we made changes, we updated the spreadsheet so it reflects what is currently on the site. You can see there the page types, the built column had like not started, in progress, blocked, or so thankfully all green now. Who built it, the URLs, a secondized review, and any comments. So how we worked was we worked in 3-week sprints. We did the first section, the first thing we would do is audit the content, and it really depended on how much content there was as to how long this would take. This was really just to get our migration document together and just check there was nothing that was going to completely throw us during the process. We tended to build and do the review in the 2nd and 3rd weeks of the sprint. That was certainly the intention as we started. Towards the end of the process, as you start coming up against your deadline, things got a little bit more frantic and the lines got a little bit more blurred. But all content was reviewed by second eyes before it went live. So someone else in the team would check that content just to make sure we hadn't done anything completely ridiculous. So I was a big proponent of manual migration from the get-go. I never wanted to use automated migration because I felt that it kind of stripped away a good opportunity to actually look at your content. And with the way we did it, whilst we were very under time pressure, it did let us make small improvements. So it let us just, if we caught things that we wanted to change, like, so for example, we've been actively changing the word ensure on our website. So like, where we spotted things like that, we would just quickly make those changes. And we kind of came to the conclusion that we would have actually needed to check every page anyway. So why not just do it as we went rather than have to migrate everything and then go back over everything. It was quite interesting listening to the conversation about the code and how you match up elements, because one of the things that is different in Drupal 9 for us is there are different paragraph options, the image sizing slightly different, and the functionality is slightly different. So we think that we wouldn't have made the best use of that functionality, or indeed as content editors learned that functionality, if we'd just let that be automated. Whereas we've come out of the end of this project really knowing our system well and knowing what it can do and how we can best use it. One of the things we did try to do was convert PDFs to content pages where we could, or just we did remove quite a lot of PDFs. We couldn't do this as much as we wanted, again, because it's very time consuming. And at the moment, we don't have the HTML templates to do that. This was one example where we took what was a document to explain planning policy and made it into a web page where people could actually click on links and find out more about specific things. So we went from what was a Word document turned to PDF to a page that actually guides people through the planning policy pages. If you've ever looked at planning policy, you'll know it's very confusing. And I think I finally got my head around it by the time I finished this page. But so doing things like an automated migration, it wouldn't let you do that. It would just copy that document across. Whereas here we looked at it and we said, right, we've got the time to make this bit better. One thing that we didn't do is we didn't work with service teams. And that's obviously like a content design no-no. You should really always work with your service teams. But one of our problems was that because everyone was so busy with COVID, we couldn't get people to respond to us in time to do things. We had a tight deadline, and we'd already done the piece of work around user journey mapping, the information architecture review, with those teams the previous 2 years previous, which I know times change and it needs doing. So it was one of those, a balancing act between engaging with teams where they just did not have the capacity to engage with us and getting a new site done. So what we did is we had a few sections where there were really big changes, and we did work with those teams on those bigger changes. But for the most part, this really was just a lift and shift kind of job of moving content over. And what we did at the end of the sprints is we would make that content live, and then we sent the links to the content on beta. So we would have the existing site still live, we would have the beta content, and we'd send them the links to their new content and say, please give us any feedback before we redirect your content. And we gave them, I think it was a week or 2 weeks to do that. So we were quite strict about it. If you don't come back to us, this is going live. And amazingly, we didn't actually have any problems with that. People were just so busy that I think just not having to think about it for them was better. So where are we now? We're down to just over 1,800 pages, and hopefully we'll ditch quite a lot of COVID pages soon. So we might reduce that down a bit more. And we're down to 976 documents. So we did get rid of probably about 200-300 documents, and we made an inroads into the number of pages we had. So we consider that a pretty good job in terms of reducing content. However, it's not finished, never is. It looks like it's signed off and done and live, and we won't touch it again, but we do. So we still want to do things like we want to do an information architecture review, because we have quite a few different styles of accessing things through our navigation. We want to pick up some of the bigger tasks that we noticed during the build. So in every spreadsheet, we have lists of things that we didn't have time to do that we might want to go back and do. So we want to do that. And we're also going to implement directories and events functionality, which we have got on our site in the background at the moment. We just need the time to go in and add that in. Yeah, and that very quickly is how we migrated our content.